Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Andrea Turowski here, owner and founder of the Miss Moneymaker e-course. In this video today, I'm going to be talking about a topic that I seem to be talking to, or I should say talking about, to pretty much all of the one-on-one clients that I have. And I find that every single client that I've talked to, and this is literally every single one, they don't know how to start a savings account and they don't know how to start an emergency fund because the answer is always the same. They say, well, I want to pay off all of my debt first. And this is why I came to you, because I want to pay off all of my debt first. So if I'm putting, let's say, $100 a month into an emergency fund and $100 a month into my savings account, that's $200 that I could have put towards my debt and I'd be paying it off sooner, right? That's often what people say to me. And although they do make a good point, this is how people typically get into debt in the first place, is because they simply don't have the money. And even when you're paying off your debt, things still happen. Emergencies will happen. You'll end up paying for something that you weren't expecting. Because if you've been following me for a while, the first thing I say is every single cent that you make and whoever is living in your household who is paying their paycheck towards everything too. So every single cent that you two or three, or however it works, make, you need to put those cents somewhere. So each and every month you need to say how much you can afford for eating out, or how much you can afford for food, how much you can afford to pay for your heat, your water, your mortgage, things like that. And you do have certain expenses that are the same every single month. So those should come first. And then whatever's left, you need to put that towards expenses that you don't necessarily have to pay the same every single month. So food is a perfect example. Do you need to buy pop and chips every single month or week? No, and that will save you money. So you see how food is the perfect example of you can sort of change how much you are spending depending on what you're purchasing, depending on what's on sale, things like that. But you also need to be putting that same amount of money every single month into a savings account and a separate emergency fund. So the two things are not the same. And this is what I'll be talking to you guys about in this video, because I know a lot of people say to me, I would rather pay off my debt first, and that is fine. But life happens. Things will happen where you take your car in, let's say for a simple oil change every 6 months. And then they say to you, well, it's actually going to be $300 or $400 more than you expected because we needed to take care of this, we needed to take care of that. And if you're paying off your debt, you don't have any extra money usually. So that $300 or $400, where is that going to come from? Well, if you don't have the money, then you have to take it out of your credit cards, and then you're even more in debt than you were in the first place. But if you had an emergency fund set up where even if you only had $200 in there and you have to pay for that car $300, you're not as worse off as you would have been if you had to take out that $300 from the MasterCard that you just simply don't have the money. Instead, you may have to take out $100 or ask your family or somehow save up that money. But you see how you would be a lot less worse off if you had the money in your emergency fund. So that's why I say, even if you're paying off debt, you need to be putting some form away for your savings and the emergency fund. Now, Another question is typically, well, how much should I be putting away? Should it be $20 a month? Should it be $100 a month? Should it be $200 a month? Now, this is where I do say it depends on what you can afford. And I know you're paying off your debt, so you're probably thinking, well, I can't afford anything because I'm paying off my debt. But let's just say you and your husband or wife make $100,000 a year. You could afford technically to put more towards your savings account and your emergency fund than if you were the only one working and you make $30,000 only per year. So this there's no magical number, but I do say put aside some every single month that you are able to. And I do suggest it be at least $25 a month. I prefer to say it should be closer to $100 a month if you're able to, but at least $25 a month in your savings account and your emergency fund. So that's a total of $50 a month. Once again, I do say it does help you more if you're able to put $100 a month away for your emergency fund and at least $100 away for your savings account. But for some people, that just simply isn't possible. But if you think about it, this should be something that you're taking out automatically from every single check. So that way, if it comes out of your bank account and let's say it goes directly into your savings account and then also directly into your emergency fund, it's not money you tend to think about. But if it's something that you have to manually put in there, you will probably think and you'll say to yourself, oh, well, I could put this $25 into my savings account, but you know what? I kind of need this for something else. You will always come up with an excuse or two because this is just how life is and how life happens. But if you have to manually put it in there, you will take a moment and think about it. But if it comes out of your bank account, let's say every week or every 2 weeks or every month, it's not money you're even thinking about. So, this is a good thing that you should actually start to do now. And if this means you have to stop eating out for a week or two, then I would say that putting that money in that savings account and emergency fund is worth it because if anything unexpected happens, you will have saved up a good amount and it won't hurt as much, so to speak. So it's very, very important. Now, also, people ask me, how much should I have in my savings account and emergency fund? Well, I'm going to start with your savings account. So, your savings account is more for, let's say you're saving up to go to Mexico or Cuba at the end of the year. And let's just say, I'm just going to pick out a number here. Let's just say it is $1,000 each. And you and your husband would like to take a vacation in October. So for $1,000 each for each person, so that's $2,000. So you need to put money aside every single month or week, whatever works for you, into your savings account. So this is something that you're saving up. So you know that at the end of the year, if you have enough money, you have saved up for that certain thing. But you also have to think, okay, if we need to save up $2,000 by October, how much money realistically do we need to be putting aside every single month? If you're thinking, well, if I put aside $10 a month, that should be enough. Well, that doesn't add up to $2,000. So you need to find the money somehow and make sure to save up and put some money aside into your savings account every single month. So this could mean saying, well, we shouldn't be watching all the TV we do anyway. So if we cancel our cable, that's $80 a month, or however much it happens to be. But that adds up a lot quicker than if you're only saving $10 a month. And I do have a lot of clients who say to me, well, I'm making less money now, but if I put more hours in at work per month, then I can save more. And that's actually quite smart, because if you know that, let's say you spend an extra hour every day at work, even if you're there 8 hours every day anyway, if you spend that extra hour there, you will be exhausted. You will be exhausted by the end of it, but you will also say, well, you know what? I worked very, very hard to make that extra hour's worth of income. So you will be more inclined to put that in your savings account than if you said, oh, well, I worked hard. So I think with that extra hours of income, I will go out and buy a coffee, a slice of cake, um, a sandwich even. That's typically not what people think. You would be surprised, because if you're exhausted by the end of the day, you will think, okay, well, I worked hard so that I could put that money into our savings account so we could take the holiday at the end of the year. Now, the emergency fund, however, is not the same thing as a savings account. So a savings account is something that you're saving up for, okay? So it is perfectly okay to take out that money at the end once you have saved up enough. But an emergency fund, you should not take any money out of this unless it's a true emergency. So if you see a new laptop that you think you absolutely have to have, do you need a laptop? Probably not. But do you want a laptop? Yes. You may be thinking, well, I have about 1,000 in my emergency fund. Why don't I just use that? It will make me happier, and then I'll just have to remember to save up more for my emergency fund. That's what you may be thinking, but that never works. An emergency fund is for a true emergency, such as I had mentioned earlier, if you take your car in for an oil change, but it's actually an extra $300 because they had to do other things, which always seems to happen, and you don't have the money, you can take it out of your emergency fund, because that's obviously something that you have to pay for. You can't say, well, sir, I don't have the money. He or she would say, well, too bad, so that is something you do have to pay for. But keep in mind, though, in some of these um, auto shops, you could pay a certain amount per month as long as they're not charging you interest. So keep that in mind. It depends on the auto shop, but they may be okay with you, say, paying $100 a month. And that's perfectly fine if they're not charging you interest. So just keep that in mind. Another example of an emergency is, let's say your furnace stops working. It's in the middle of winter. That's an emergency, because you can't say, well, we can't afford to fix the furnace, so we're not going to have heat. That's horrible. So this is a true emergency. So this isn't something you save up for, but this is a true emergency. And if you have enough in your emergency fund, then things will be a lot easier for you and less stressful too. Now, in your emergency fund, you should have 6 months worth of expenses. And I know this will take time, and that's okay. But some people say to me, you know what? I just need a place to start. How much should I have in my emergency fund? At least 3 months worth, but it should be 6 months worth, okay? So if that helps, this will take time, and try not to think like, okay, 6 months worth of expenses is going to take me a year or two. That's okay. But the main thing is that you are simply thinking that you're putting money aside every single week or every 2 weeks or every single month into your savings and emergency fund. So if you're still not sure what the difference is between a savings account and an emergency fund, please just let me know, because there is obviously a clear um, difference from them. And I think I gave you pretty good examples, so I do hope that that helps. So we talked about the savings and the emergency. How the heck, and this is my often, all of my clients say to me, how the heck am I supposed to save up for a savings account and emergency fund when I owe, let's just say $60,000, how is this possible? Anything is possible, even if you had to take money from somewhere else, such as your eating out, your food, your entertainment. You know what? That's okay, but take it out from somewhere. And even if you're only saving a little per month, trust me, that adds up. And of course, this is absolutely essential. So I do not say to anyone, well, you don't need a savings account or an emergency fund. I never ever say that, ever, ever, ever. Um, Everybody needs one. Even if you don't owe anything, you should have a savings account and emergency fund, because life happens. And of course, start now. I don't want you to be thinking, well, okay, I see how this works. I'll start when I make more money. No, start now. Look at where you can sort of cut your expenses out of different categories and start now. And trust me, the money does add up. Like, just as an example, I probably save about, it comes out automatically. So honestly, I'm just trying to think right now. I save about $200 a month in my emergency fund and about $200 to $300 in my savings account, because Tom and I at the moment are saving up for Poland, because we're going to Poland in June and July. And we do have money in our savings account, but we're saving that for other things. So we're also saving up more so that we have some spending money for when we go away. So I do typically put about $200 or $300 a month in there. But having that said, if I make more than I had expected to, that extra money that I make, I put half of that into a savings account and then the other half into our emergency fund. I mean, I don't do this every single time because, I'm like you, and I might say, well, I did work hard, so I think I'll take that extra amount of money and eat out, because we all know, unfortunately, that I love eating out. Having to not have to cook and then clean up after is just awesome. But I also don't owe anything. So at some point, you will all be at that same spot, but it takes time. So for you, make sure to save up a certain amount every single month for your savings and emergency fund. And if you make more, hey, put in a little extra more of that, into your savings account and your emergency fund. And soon it will add up, and then you'll say, oh my God, that was easier than I thought. It may take 3 months, it may take 6 months or more, but that's okay. All right, so that's all I had for you today. If anybody has any questions, please let me know, and I'll see you all soon in the next video.